Hey there, and welcome to the Believing Better series, day number 5. I think we're on day 5.
I think.
My guest today is Andee. We're just discussing how to say her last name, and we came up with Martineau. We have a
The
little.
problem is I say it wrong, I'm sure. If there's anybody who speaks French on the call, they can say it probably correctly, but I don't have a clue really.
Let's just call her Andee.
We'll just say Andee. Yeah, I say Martineau, but yeah, I'm probably slaughtering it.
We're going to share a little bit of story today about Andee and I's travels together and her experience in Self-Healing Masters and what she is doing in the world, the work that she is promoting and helping others with. And that is connective parenting. Guys, you know, I love this. It's all about, I really think that if we did this work before ever even thinking about having babies, how the world would change, or our life would change, right? But typically the children are the path to bring us to our knees to the work.
Yes, to teach
So
us.
hopefully,
They teach
yes,
us.
they do. They do. They are the best teachers. So Andee and I met a couple of years ago. I don't even know if the book was completely out. Was it published yet? Was it just published? I remember we were discussing it and you were like, "You're doing what? Huh? Tell me more. I'm so
Yeah,
interested."
I know. I can't remember if you had just, it was like you were right there on the cusp. I can't remember if you had like already published it or was like about to come out, but yeah, and I was so intrigued. I'm like, oh, this sounds so amazing. Tell me everything. And yeah, it was it resonated from the very beginning, what
Yeah.
you're doing for sure. Yeah.
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 One thing we have in common for sure is the path of spirituality and how to live from that state of wholeness, personal wholeness, you know, that soul essence, and contribute. I don't know, just contribute from such a natural way in the world, I think is probably what we have most in common. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, what does your family look like?
Yes. Okay.
Give us a bit.
So born and raised in Arizona. So I think it's cold right now where we are just because my blood is so thin, but it's not that cold to most people. I have a little heating pad on my lap. Um, and I have 6 kids. My oldest is 21, which is so bizarre. I feel like I'm 21. And my youngest is 12, 3 girls, 3 boys, and married my high school sweetheart, actually, the man who gave me my first kiss. So I have known this guy for a long time. And there's been a very difficult, I will say, journey becoming a wife and a mother and figuring out how to navigate things in a way that I felt was authentic to who I was, and that resonated really for me. And it led me to a lot of questioning just about the world, like, wait, this is how I found myself defaulting in a lot of areas in my life, in my marriage, with my parent, with my kids, in school, all the different things. And thank goodness something inside of me allowed me to start to see, or at least ask the question, like, is there possibly another way to think about this? Is there possibly another way to, live? And I just feel like things were given to me at the right time when I was ready, and I was able to really begin not a smooth journey, but an amazing journey that just like has given me opportunity after opportunity to really confront things and to decide if I was going to do something different or if that was working for me. And so slowly but surely, I went to school, became a nurse, worked in the hospital, have this, I love science. I love figuring things out. But after having about 3 kids, I was like, I gotta I decided to stay home for a while and just do my own learning and own journey and trying to figure out parenting. So, yeah, now I am crazy. It's like kind of crazy to think that this is where I am now, but certified life coach, uh, deep dive for 20 plus years on parenting, found connective parenting, developmental psychology, so many other things. Kim's taught me so many things, and I just keep integrating it in and just finding the truth and like bringing in what resonates. Like, okay, let's just 1% up level, 1% up level. But I love that I get to work with moms now, that's really where I've landed, and really talk about the difference between a corrective default approach, which is kind of most people think parenting and is like about correction and discipline and behavior management, and just really question all of that and say like, what if it's actually about something a little bit different and actually works better and feels amazing? And so this connective approach to parenting, which really just is about a connective approach to life. We just zero in and
Yeah.
talk about kids.
Yeah, because like the correctiveness, like it's not that we mean to be like the police and the sergeant and all that. We just want to keep those little suckers alive. Like we're so afraid, right? We're so afraid to mess up. And like, would they just listen? If they would just listen, then they wouldn't get in trouble. Then they wouldn't get hurt. Then they wouldn't get. It's like
Yes, yes. Well, we feel that weight of responsibility, and I think that's important. I think it's there for a reason, but we come at it from this controlling,
Yeah.
scarcity, like fear place instead of abundance, like, like feeling like we're capable, we've got this. Like we come at it really because it's just the way most, not everybody, but typically the way most parents come at parenting. We end up getting caught in that little cycle. So yeah, we don't mean to. And it really comes from a place of like, we want to do our best. We don't want to be passive. We don't want to like not teach our kids what we feel like they need to be taught so they can become amazing humans. But we just sometimes come at it from a place of fear instead of a place of abundance, or scarcity maybe instead of abundance, like we got this,
Yeah.
instead of, I don't know if I'm going to do this right. And doubting
There's
ourselves.
there's teaching, and then there's this sense of urgency or like fear that we're going to like we try to cram it all in, like everything we know they need to know now, right? And make sure, I think it's all to prevent, I would say, right? To prevent them from being exposed to something that's going to take them away from us, or I don't know
We're
if,
afraid of them like living.
yeah.
Like, and like, even though we experience pain and we experience disappointment and we learn, and we can look back and learn on those things and realize, oh, some of my most incredible growth and some of the times I became the most was when I went through a hard time. We look at our kids and we're like, we don't want you to have any hard times.
Right.
We don't want you to mess up at all. We don't want any. And so we start to kind of have this warped idea of what their life's supposed to be like. And I think we also make their behavior mean so much about us and so much about them, instead of just saying, oh, this behavior is just information. Like, this is just something I'm going to look at. It's telling me something going on in them, and having a belief, like a seed, looking at our kids like a seed and thinking like they have everything they need to become the human they're supposed to become. They might become a rose, even though I'm hoping they'll become a daffodil. Like how do I just help them become the best rose or the best oak tree? We have these ideas of we are the ones that are making them become that person, instead of like, oh no, they already have everything they need. My
Right.
job's just to fertilize and make sure there's enough sunlight, and then they're gonna, and water, and then they're gonna become whatever they become. I really have no control over that. Let me just become the best version of them they can become. And if they have a behavior or something comes up, it's like a little thorn, we're like, they shouldn't have thorns. It's like some plants have thorns. It's important, like sometimes we go through rough times and there's not enough water and they're going to pull back and they're going to have struggles and all of that. And just thinking about it instead of like, I have to control everything that's going on with the child, instead of how do I just help create and cultivate an environment that they can just flourish and grow. And sometimes that doesn't look super neat and clean.
Right.
Sometimes it's a little messy, and sometimes that's, but when we start making like, oh, they lied, therefore they're going to become a liar and they're going to go to jail and they're never going to be, they're going to embezzle money, like our brain goes there, instead of like, oh, what is this just telling me about them right now? I don't need to make this story mean anything other than this.
I found booze in their room, so they were going to be an alcoholic.
They're
right?
going to be a drunk. And yes, then we go right to that. Yeah. And so that gets us in this scarcity, this fear place. It's not believing in the best in them, and somehow more like we're a sculptor and there's this rough piece of marble we have to force into this thing that we want to create, instead of their plant that we just need to like become like the gardener and relax and just lean into it, instead of trying to chisel everything that feels pokey away. Yeah.
Like if we want to control something, it needs to be our thoughts and our emotions.
Well, really, that's all we have to control. Yeah. All we have the ability to do is really just our thought. We don't even have the ability to control a lot of things we think we have the control over in our life. But, from the time they're a baby, when they spit out the peas, we should start to get a clue like, oh, crap, I'm not gonna be able to
They have
control
an
this child.
opinion. They know what they like and
They
don't
know
like.
what they like. And you can use control a little bit more effectively. Not that it doesn't come without a cost, but when they're little, we can kind of fool ourselves into thinking, oh, I think we can make this bribing and ultimatums and correcting thing work. But the older they get, it becomes clearer and clearer that like, there's really no controlling a teenager. If they want something, they're going to figure it out. So let's just start to see if there's like maybe something else that might work better, So
And
yeah.
I'm even thinking, like, this is even for parents of puppies, like in pets. And,
Yes.
it's like, it's almost like how you do anything, you do everything, right? It's like, it's
Right.
everywhere. It's not, this is just the avenue you're using to teach, it's like the catalyst that you're using, the pain points, in order to have this conversation. So what was your belief before about parenting?
Oh, I was so stuck in all the stories, like I remember my kids, when they would talk back or they wouldn't do their chores, or they wouldn't clean up, or they were, all whatever those little things were when they were little. And I was still like confused about the whole thing, thinking I was bad. I must be a bad mom. Something's wrong with me. It was, something's wrong with them. If I just did something different, they would behave differently. And it was just a lot of convoluted conversations going on in my head, and a lot of like should be doing different. And so it was like I was correcting and being harsh on myself and attacking myself, and I was also being harsh and attacking my kids, even though I don't hate to admit that, but I hate to like
Hear yourself admit it.
yeah, like just hard, like it's just sad sometimes, but yeah, I was doing the best I
Right.
could at the time, because that's all the skills I had. It was like consequences and rewards were on my tool belt, and I just used more of them, or harsher, bigger rewards, bigger consequences, because it was like, well, this is all I have, so I must have to do it more. Maybe that's the problem. I'm not doing it more. And then, or I would slip into like, fine, whatever. I just am going to give up. And we don't have to choose between the two. And sometimes people will say, well, isn't this connective thing kind of passive? And I'm like, absolutely not passive at all. It's actually so active and so intentional and so beautiful. It's just not controlling and scarce. It actually feels good. And I think there's a little bit of it's so outside the scope of like this shame, blame, guilt, like all of the things we unintentionally do, that I think our brains kind of think like, could that actually work? Like, is that even possible? Well, people do things if will kids actually listen to me if I don't give them an ultimatum? And I'm like, absolutely they
Right.
will.
Or if I don't reward them to bribe them, or if I
Right.
don't threaten them to.
We don't have a lot of experience or examples. I mean, they are there, but our brain likes to collect, more evidence for what we think is true. And so if like we think that's the only way it works, we're not going to find a lot of examples out there to support it. So it takes a little bit of faith, in this like new way of believing, like, what if I believe, but we talk about it. It's like, what if you just believed that you were doing the best you could, and that your kids have everything they need, and that they're whole, complete, and perfect, and there's nothing wrong with them? Like, what if we just believed that? And that really fueled our actions. Because part of us does, but like, what if we believed it enough that like when you find the alcohol, when you find, that they've been lying, when they haven't turned in anything at school and they refuse to do their homework, like, what if we could believe it in those moments? How would that change everything? And that's pretty amazing when we start having those shifts.
Yeah, that was my next question is, what was the transition like when you were going from this old way to this new way? And then you had all these people around you who were doing it the old way. And here you are trying out this new way and maybe not getting their approval. And paint the picture. What does that look like?
Oh my gosh. It was, I mean, anytime we're going through like the road of transformation, there's this period of time where you know better, but you can't do better. That was really tricky. It was like, oh, I know this isn't working. Then for a while, I didn't know what to do better. Then when I started to realize what to do better, there was this like, shoot, I just did it again. I just yelled at them again. So that was really, really uncomfortable. And I had to get through this space of not beating myself up that I wasn't doing better, like really believing like it's going to happen. I just have to keep practicing it, like a role in a play or something, right? Like it takes time to learn the new part. And so I had to be patient there, But I remember one time when I had decided to do this, my two youngest were pretty little because anyway, I had 6 kids in 8 years, so they're not very far apart, any of them. But I had these 2 kids at Target, and we're in the checkout, we're in the checkout thing, and they were freaking out. My last two are a year and 5 days apart, so basically, like, little twins.
Twins.
And the woman in front of me in the checkout turns around. She's like, "Thank you so much, because now my daughter's never going to want to have children." And this, like, and she just like kind of went off on me because I wasn't giving my girls gum. Like, they wanted these things at the checkout. And I was like, no. And I was okay with them crying. I wasn't making it mean anything. I wasn't frustrated with my girls. I knew it was annoying, like, to all these people, but I'm like, I'm not going to just give them gum right now. Cause they had anyway. And there were a lot of moments like that where I just had to stay in try my best. I didn't always do it, but stay in my place and not be frustrated that she was upset at me,
Yeah.
not be frustrated that the checkout lady was rolling her eye. Like, I just say, like, I get it. Yeah, they're loud and this is annoying. I get it, and just stay in that. So there was a lot of uncomfortable swimming through, like, what am I doing? Is this going to work? And just
Well,
stay in
that's
the
the reason
course.
most of us cave though, right? Because it's inconvenient for someone else. It's like the parents that they really
Yes.
don't want to put their child on medication, and the teacher's insisting on it because they're behaving badly, or they're, or whatever it is. It's like, or like you're saying, whether it's at church or at the grocery store, that it's an inconvenience to someone else. Like, oh, this little human is inconvenient, right? That's what we've been taught. And that's why we're so afraid to be too much. We're so afraid
Right.
to be too loud. We're so afraid to be too human. Like,
Right. Yeah. You have to, like, choose. Like, for me, I had to choose what I felt was right for my kids and make that more important than what was
comfortable for you.
convenient or comfortable for me, or acceptable to other people.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I just said, oh no, this is way too important for me to, like, what I'm trying to create here is, like, they can be disappointed and I'm not going to be mad at them. And I'm not going to tell them to, like, I'm just going to say, I know it's hard. It's okay. We cry when we're sad, and give them that space, and people to be like, what are you doing? Tell them to shush up. They should not be acting like this. And I'm like, gosh, in my head, I'm thinking, like, when were you really disappointed last? Did you just, like, if you were emotional, did you want another adult to say, like, just shush up? It's not that big of a deal, And no.
If we would cry more when we felt like it, we would probably eat less whenever we really wanted to cry.
If we cried more, we would actually feel the emotions.
Yeah.
And like, all this stuff I've learned about developmental psychology just supports this more and more, which I love. Is just, it is the feeling of the emotion that when we use the thinking and we use all these other avenues to help us get to this place where we can feel the emotion. But what they've shown is the brain actually changes when we open up to the emotion. That's how we become more emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
That's, I feel like, how we grow and how we evolve. And I think for generations, that hasn't been as available because survival has needed to happen. And that's great. We needed to survive, but we're in a place now where it's like, we can kind of explore this a little bit more. We can feel these emotions, because that's the thing that grows us up. Like, growing up, getting older is inevitable, but emotional maturity is not inevitable. It doesn't just happen. And so
it's okay to emote.
It's
like, we're now in a stage in time. It's okay to emote. And we're going to teach you how to feel and how to process and how to integrate it, and embody it. Yeah. So that it doesn't trigger you somewhere else. Cause that's what happens. Feelings buried alive never die. And then we meet up with someone later on and we think it's them that's creating that in us because we weren't able to experience it for ourselves early on.
Right.
Such a gift.
When I say it's not even just, sorry. Totally overtalked. Like, oh, I'm so excited. I think it's not even just okay. It's, like, absolutely necessary. Mm-hmm. It's I think one of the big reasons we're all here in these bodies, having this experience on this planet, I think we were like, sign me up for that. I can feel all those emotions. Yeah. But then we get down here and we're like, these emotions feel terrible. I don't want to feel all these emotions. And I think if we just, like, I can just keep reminding myself, like, no way. I want to feel the depths of grief so I can feel the heights of joy, but when we start telling our kids, no, keep it small. Like, I'm only comfortable with these 20 emotions. Like, so if you step out of those, I almost think of, like, right now is the time to make sugar cookies, and like we roll out the dough and we like have our little cookie cutter, and it's like our emotions are the whole thing we roll out. But sometimes as a parent or even with another adult, we're like, but my cookie cutter is only this big. You're only allowed to like experience that kind, like anything outside of that makes me really uncomfortable. And I think as parents, we have to be okay with all of their emotions. And that starts with us being okay with all of our emotions, right? So, because it's hard to give permission if we have a lot of triggering to like anger, that sometimes we have this big story about it. We're not going to give other people around us a lot of permission to be angry because we're going to have a story about it. But if it's like, oh, anger is just part of the process. Sometimes we feel angry.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Then when our kids feels angry, they don't feel like, oh, I can't feel angry. That's not okay. I'm not allowed to be with mom when I'm feeling angry. When I'm feeling angry, mom tells me I'm too much. Mom puts me in timeout. Mom's not. Then they just, they don't.
And then
let
they're
process.
left with the shame that they did something wrong as they put away in their timeout. And so then we have the whole shame story that comes up behind it, right?
I mean, not even that they did something wrong, but there is something wrong with them.
Yes.
And I think
we need to exclude you. We need to put you away. We need to eliminate you, which is emotional control. I mean, this is emotional manipulation. We do it as adults. It's been done as kids. It is such an active form of punishment, or should I say, like it's worked. It's what would
like,
be the word?
I mean, I don't know what the exact. I mean, you might have a different word. For me, it's almost. It becomes this story where we don't accept ourselves. We don't love ourselves. We're not like, we're broken. We start this story of like, there's something wrong with me. There's something, I'm broken from like this tiny age. But if we were given permission, like, oh yeah, feel all those emotions, there's nothing wrong with you. Sometimes we just feel, we gave them all of this room. Then I think the story that some of us carry or have carried or are working through, that there's something within me that is fixed, that's broken, that needs to be fixed. We wouldn't have that because it'd be like, there's nothing wrong with me, right? This is all part of me.
The message is you shouldn't suffer. You shouldn't be uncomfortable. You shouldn't have an array of emotions. You wouldn't, right? That's the message that the parent that's trying to save the child from feeling. That's the message that we're receiving and we're giving. Is like, it's not okay, and here we are as adults now trying to come back to those adult children and tell them it's okay to feel.
Yeah. I think it's because as adults we're confused because we weren't given that space. So we're like, we think that being calm is just something that we willpower in, instead of like being calm is something that happens as you feel your emotions and you work through it and you give permission. Then you find calm. Yeah. You don't find calm by forcing it on you. Be calm, be quiet, calm down. How many times have we done that to our kids? And if we were all triggered, got in a car accident, got our feelings hurt, someone just said something really hurtful, and some other adult came to us and said, that's not that big of a deal. Calm down. I don't know why you're making it such a big deal. Yeah. I mean, it's easy, I think of like, if I promised, I say I'd clean the car this week and I didn't do it for some reason. My husband comes in, he's like, you didn't clean the car. I'm taking the car away. I can't believe you didn't clean the car. No car time for you this week. To be like, what the crap? And it wouldn't make me want to be open to him. Like I would feel like unheard. I probably have a reason, or maybe I just didn't get around to it because I didn't care. Like I would feel all of a sudden like, I'm not listening to you. Why are you being so rude to me? Like, why don't you, and that's what we do to our kids. Yeah. And it doesn't create, because we learn, we grow inside relationships of trust and connection, right? All good. I mean, most of the people we're open to get feedback from as adults are the people who we trust, we love, we have some kind of relationship with them. That's who we're really open to. And it doesn't happen because they came down harsh on us and gave us this big, you should know better. We've talked about this 5 times. Right. That's not what happens. I'm
remembering I was lucky enough to have a friend before I finished with all of my kids, that we were talking about punishment, and it just didn't, it didn't feel right. It's that isolation. It's putting them away, closing the door, putting them in timeout. And it's like, if you really want to, if you want to call it punish your children and create this, it's like, have them be punished in front of you, like sitting right there with you, like, and talking about whatever the thing is. That is way more impactful, and it doesn't separate them, right? And it is so uncomfortable as the parent, because I did it and I was like, oh my God, this sucks. It's so much easier to be mad at them and send them away than it is for us to be there with them in the learning process.
Right. Well, I think it's because we have to confront ourselves at some point that the reason we're mad has nothing to do with our kids.
Right.
So well, I'm so, stressed because of my kids. I'm so upset because of my kids. It's like, no, this has nothing to do with your kids. This
Yep.
is, and we come at it gently, right? We're like, "Rawr," but we start to explore that, and then we start to realize, that's interesting. And maybe what my kids need to learn the lesson, because we're so convinced they need to learn the lesson,
Oh, I
has
know.
nothing to do with the consequence, has everything to do with being understood. There's this amazing developmental psychologist that talks just about frustration in such a beautiful way. And he says, when we're frustrated, like this base level, and then we have all the secondary emotions, right, that come off of it. But he just says, you know, if we could just see, when a kid is having, and this goes for adults too, but when a kid's having a reaction, they're talking back, they're being sassy, they're lying, they're cheating, whatever they're doing, it's all it is that there's something in their life that's not working, and they're frustrated, and this is how it's coming out.
Right.
We don't need to label them. They're just, what is it, the thing that's they're up
Yeah.
against? Like, how can we help that work for them? And sometimes as a parent, that helps the neutrality kind of the situation actually come in and be like, oh, this has nothing to do with them being mean or rude, or there's no
Right.
character flaw. It's just, they don't know what to do. There's something not working in their life. They're either going to try to change it. If they can feel the emotions of it, great. They'll adapt and move through it and integrate it, right? Or they're going to attack. So it's
But the
really
problem is we think, like, we have thoughts about it,
right.
and then we react to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of thoughts, but
So how would you describe your household now compared to then?
oh my gosh, it's so much better. Well, and it's really interesting because I do have older kids now, 2 adults. Um, and when they were little, it was part of it. I mean, I had a lot, which I think was the perfect storm for me to force me to figure this out, because there was no ignoring it. There was no like pretending it wasn't happening, because it was so obvious. Just lots of yelling, lots of controlling, lots of me thinking that my solution to getting everything to be better in my life as far as my kids went was their behavior, and like that needed to fix first. And there was this, kind of come to Jesus moment where I had this realization that that was not the thing at all that was going. I mean, that happens, but not because I controlled it into happening. It happened because all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but there was a transformational process that slowly became like
Inside.
where I decided nothing they did had like I wasn't going to I wasn't going to like make the meaning out of it. I wasn't going to make it mean anything about me, and I wasn't going to make it anything about them. And I was going to believe that we were all doing our best in that moment. We were all going to we were all doing our best. It might have been terrible, but we were all doing our best. And I think that transformation happened slowly, but and partially because I was like fumbling in the dark. There was nobody saying like, hey,
Right.
like, look, here's these like principles, and here's some ways you can think about. I like pulling, I'm like, oh, that worked. Oh, let me look at that. Like that feels good. Oh, that was terrible. So it was like trial and error. It was a lot of like moving around in the dark. But I feel like people will say like, I don't give consequences. I don't have to. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There are sometimes there's limits I set. There's boundaries I have. There's, there's things that can be taken away from the kids if I feel like it's not safe, but I don't do it now because I think it's going to fix their behavior. I just do it because it's the best thing to serve them. It's almost like this
Yes.
is a gift for them.
Good.
Like they don't know how to control their sleeping habits right now because they're too little. I'm gonna step in, but not from a negative way, just from like, oh, like a generous like gift I'm giving them. And it's on a harsh thing. And it's funny because the more you just trust, and kids can feel the trust, as they get older too, they just respect themselves and they love
Mhm.
themselves. And it's not a tug of war, because there's no like they just start to have so much confidence and belief in themselves. They want what's best for their life, that it just becomes these dreamy relationships. And it's not that it's perfect all of the time, but there is a connection and relationship and level of just, I don't know, just peace
Ease.
and
I
ease.
know.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And And the kids aren't afraid of us. They're not afraid of getting in trouble. Cause even if we do have to put a limit, even if we do have to take something away, it's, I mean, I'm not perfect. So I'm not saying it's like, but my generally it's not coming from a place of anything but love. And there's no shame and there's no guilt. And it's like, yeah, sometimes we just make bad choices. That's not a problem. We all do it sometimes. I do it sometimes, and we just, and so we're gonna, one of my sons had a cell phone issue one time. And it was just like, he just came and gave me, he's like, I know what we talked about.
He's
It's like,
volunteering.
he gave it to me. He's like, I broke it. I broke the rule. And he sensed in himself that had been something that wasn't helpful for him, that wasn't serving him. And so that's kind of how it's evolved. And it's really beautiful. It's something I'm always, trying to be present to. But I think once we start to have some fundamental shifts, like they're truly like, there's nothing to broken. There's nothing to be fixed. My kids are whole, complete, perfect. I'm whole, complete, perfect. And we continue to practice that in the best way we can as imperfect, human beings. The more that becomes a default belief,
What would you say when we had the conversation and we met and we kind of learned, like, what was the draw or what intrigued you about the process, the integrative coaching, the process, the punchline approach, like all of this stuff that kind of confirmed what you were doing and already kind of onto? Because that's what I saw in you. You were like, yes, someone else, right?
Well, it was like you were saying the things that either I had thought of and I was like, ooh, I hadn't heard it that way, or something that you would say that I hadn't thought of. I'd be like, oh yeah, that totally fits. Like that's beautiful. That's brilliant. Like, I love that, like, so it was either confirmation or clarity, and
that's the energy you had, by the way, when we would talk. It was like you would,
I was like, oh, I can't even handle this. Yeah. Because, like we said, we had both, one of the many things I know we both have multiple like things that we've gone and gotten certified on, but and trained in and all these different things. But this mindset coach stuff that we had done was super great. But it wasn't, it didn't have like the spirituality part of it. It didn't talk about the soul in the same way I like read that resonated with me, and just like some other stuff that just felt so I don't know, peaceful and fulfilling, and like brought it together in a way for me that just felt more complete and filled in some of the gaps that I was like, I'm not sure exactly how this works. But I felt like it did, but I just wasn't sure how it did yet. It was like a little bit further down. So that's what I loved. Just so many things, but I mean, the integrative part, the part of like just the feelings and the emotion, and just like the really just one of the emphasis of just being in the moment, and just looking and just, I don't know, some of the ways you described things just resonated so deeply with me and what I was already kind of feeling, and just added to that confidence maybe that like, yeah, like this is a process that doesn't have to feel hard. It doesn't have to feel like I'm pushing through, like willpower. Like it just really was like, we actually get more benefit from all of this, the less we push and the more we just accept.
Imagine that, right? It's almost like allowing is a gift.
Allowing is the key, allowing is the key, and loving ourselves is the key, and accepting that nothing's, all of this stuff about just dropping into where we are. And that,
I think it's also that, like, I'm speaking for myself from the other end, but it's like me for myself also is connecting with you guys that are like receiving feels so good. It's like home. Yeah. It's like, hey, if you're an alien, this is your planet, right? It's like, oh, another one, it's like, oh, there's more, because there's a part of us, we're in that dissonance because it's not what the material world, does. It's like comparing the football game to quantum physics, it's like two different worlds. And when you can find more people who relate in different areas, whether it's about marriage or children or even just money, spirituality, service, all of it, it takes me home deeper in myself every time I meet someone else who says, I get it. I understand. This feels like what was missing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So
This
what
is,
would you say has been your experience in like the meditation, the integrative
oh my gosh.
meditation?
Well, I can't even describe how impactful it's been. It feels as though, and there's something that's been really unique coming like with this, I like you said, like this group of women, this group of, not, it doesn't always have to be women, but it just happens to be mostly women that are there, where we're all on the same page. There's this safety and there's this energy there that I don't know how to describe, but the transformation that has happened for me as I've gone through the meditations. I broke through things that I had been working on just from a mindset perspective for 3, 4+ years. And finally, I think it opened me up to the emotional experience of it and to the just dropping into it instead of like, something needs to be fixed. I just need a
Ugh,
new
yeah.
belief, and that's how I'm going to solve this. And I don't know, like it's almost as though my body knew what to do if I would just let go. And I think the meditation like let me let go, and then the guidance and the energy and the intention that I came with, it just started to allow the shifts to happen for me
Mhm.
on some things that had been really, confounding me. Like I was like, I get all of this here. Like, I don't know why this is still coming up when I see this person at the, like, I don't understand. I've forgiven her. Like, I don't get, but like, there was something about, I think maybe goes back to the emotional part. Like it allowed me to feel and love and accept myself doing the meditations consistently. And for some reason that container was just magical. I feel like meditation's always beautiful, but there's something really powerful about, like, specifically when you're leading them, that has allowed me to really open up and let go in a way where I don't know,
It's so
my
fun, right? It's like,
stories were let go of. Yeah, like the beliefs are gone. And how do I know? Is because then when the next time I went to something where this person was, the trigger default reaction
yeah.
emotion that I would just like, I'd feel it. I'd be like, it's fine that I'm feeling this way. It didn't come up. And I felt love and towards her and me, and so it was just reassurance and like a confirmation of, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, maybe I don't know, but there was definitely a shift, in
It
how.
is trigger training. It is
Yeah,
teaching us how to be and stay no matter what is coming up and what's happening around us, whatever the year is or
yeah.
the thing of the month is this year or whatever. Like because like I've had a great year. What about you? Like it's
Amazing,
amazing year.
amazing year.
2020 has definitely not been one of my worst years.
No, I feel, for me personally, the space it gave me to pause some of the busyness that was going on in my life and simplify has been a gift for me. And yeah, it's been a good year. It's been a
It's been
really
a
good
good
year.
year.
Um, yeah. And a lot of, I mean, you have totally helped with that. The self-healing masters, the meditation, like the different components of that you've put together have really allowed me to, I don't know,
What would
sit
you
in some things
say?
I wasn't sitting in before.
Yeah. What would you say is the difference between self-healing masters and just a coaching group or just mindset
Mm,
stuff? Because you've kind of been in both worlds as I have.
yeah, I have been in both worlds. Um, that there is a level of, I mean, everyone calls it different things, woo, spirituality, trust in the universe, God, source, whatever you want to say, that's comes into the conversation, that resonates deeply with me and has allowed me to maybe trust or shift more. The coaching is different too. So, that's coming into kind of all parts of all facets of self-healing masters, but even just the coaching calls that you do are so, the energy is so different because there's not the, that's your thought. Like that's just, I mean, we are aware of that and you do say that, but there's more layers than just like the head, just like my mind. Like that's a part of the puzzle. We want to be aware of our mind, but there's other things at play too. And I think that's just really made a difference. There's a trust in the timing. There's an energy that, just there's nothing broken. There's it's not a problem to feel this way, and it's just a lot of space, I think, to be, I don't know. I just thought of like, as I was talking about with the parenting stuff, that cookie dough, like the sugar cookie dough, it's like the cookie cutter. There is no cookie cutter. It's like,
Oh
however
yeah,
big your
that's
dough rolls, you're welcome. The whole thing. You don't have to cut it into a little, Christmas tree. And it's like, you get to have the whole cookie. And it just feels like there's all this expansive space for the emotions, for the experiences, for our judgments, for what maybe we're afraid to bring up because we feel like that looks badly about, poorly on us because we have these, whatever, like, it's like, no, that's all you. Like the good is not good and the bad is not bad. It's not bad and good. It's not right and wrong. It's just all important. It's
and
all
what you
here.
need in this moment is tailored to you. It's not like you're saying like the cookie cutter. It's not the same exact coaching for everyone. It's tailored to the experience.
Yeah.
What would you say to the person who knows it? Because that's where you are, right? I already know it. So the person who kind of knows and understands it's their thoughts, but they're still stuck. Like they still like haven't, they're like, you know what I'm talking about. These people,
Yeah.
there's a lot of them. They're sitting here saying, I already know everything y'all are saying, yet I'm still like not out of it.
I mean, I think the problem is thinking that that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's like, I know this, I should be doing better. It's like, actually, what if this is actually just a really brilliant stage you're in? Like, this is part of the process. Like, I think sometimes I know this, but I can't do this, or why isn't this changing? There's so much resistance to where we are instead of being like, oh, I know this and I'm not doing this. Perfect. That's, I guess, where I am. That's not a problem. That's and we just I think we just accept that, but not settle and don't judge. We just accept it with curiosity and compassion. And we're like, and okay, I wonder what's going to happen if I just be okay that right now I know, but don't do.
It's allowing the urge to judge and not judge.
We have to stop judging ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing wrong with any of us. Like wherever we are is perfect. I think that's just, so I think I would just say, like, you're in the perfect spot. If we just stop judging and start loving, you'll be surprised how quickly you're going to move through this. And it's not because moving through it is going to be better. It's just, you're going to be open to it and you're going to be able to go on to something else. If that's, wherever that is, maybe it's more of this now, but wherever you are, you're going to just enjoy it and appreciate it and grow. Because there's growth that happens from the knowing, not doing. It's not a bad stage, right? It's not where you want to land.
Collecting data. Now it's been 3 years I've been thinking.
Well, right. And it's like awareness. But if we're like, I know, but don't do, don't do, then we're judging and we're not getting more awareness and we're not moving forward and we're spinning our wheels instead of like, oh yeah, this is beautiful. Okay. Like, and we just love, I don't know. I just think loving every moment the best we can, more and more. Because then I think you can go to like, okay, now I can start to do, because I'm not thinking I should have done that yesterday. like I don't know.
When we drop that, the resistance and the agenda beyond that, and then allow, it's kind of like being in meditation and judging ourselves the whole time about how frustrating the meditation is. As soon as you give that up, then you can surrender and slip into that nothingness and then have all the goodies.
Right. It's like so much better. But if you keep judging, that's just where that's where you're going to stay. Because
we're at the end of our time. So the only thing I have left is when looking back, what's one thing your now self would tell your past self? And this pretty much, you just kind of covered it. So I'll just let you speak from whatever, because you did just kind of say that.
I know. I ramble. Right. Sorry. I mean, I think if I could go back to my younger self, the message, like the big overarching message would just be, there's nothing wrong with you.
Mhm.
and feel all these emotions and love exactly where you are, be present where you are, because that's the only place you can be. I'm so much of a planner or reflecting back on the problems I just did. It's just like, just love, you're doing the best you can. I think if we all just believed, if I just especially believed that we're literally always doing the best we can, there's just so much peace and acceptance that comes from that, and an openness to more growth and moving beyond that, when we just are like, yeah, that was really, because if I could have done better, I would have, because I do love
Mhm.
my kids, and I wouldn't yell if I had a choice. I would never do that, or I wouldn't, and that would be amazing. That's what I want for my kids. That's why I do connective parenting. It's like, how can we help from our kids at a younger age, or the adults in our life, or whoever we're, whoever we are involved in our life, how can we start to help them just see like they're amazing, and the flaws aren't really flaws, and the weaknesses aren't really weaknesses. Like, it's just all this amazing package that we all have, and we need it all. And I think that would change a lot of things.
Yeah, I think that's something that's so like beautiful in the self-healing masters container also is
Yeah.
really identifying or discovering our uniqueness, our designs, our
Mm.
what makes us tick, what makes us unique and different, and how all of that just flows together, with the dynamics of everyone else. And yeah, that's probably been the yummiest part for me.
Oh, and we didn't even talk about all the human design and the gene keys. Like, all of that is so beautiful to help you love yourself more, to help
How
you
has
like
that how
show up
has
in
that
your truth.
helped you with your children? Like knowing like the impact it's made on you, and then because you've like looking at your children and your husband, and did that give you kind of a, oh, I can release and let go now and let them be who they are? With did that
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it started with me, and like reading and then I read my husband's just a little bit. I don't know much, just barely, just doing just the little bit amount. But even just the little bit I did for myself, I was able to release, I feel like, a whole nother wave of judgment that I had, that I didn't even know I had. Cause I was like, I don't know. I saw the beauty of the shadow. I saw the beauty of the gift and the siddhi. Is that how you say it? I don't think I'm saying it right,
city?
but city. And I saw that in me, and I saw that in my husband. And then, yeah, I looked up my kids' stuff, and I just felt like my, I think what it gave me, for specifically for my kids, was just an ability to serve them better, because now I
Mm-hmm.
understood them more. And for my husband, I just remember I was like literally crying as I read some of his stuff, because I was so touched. And so I felt like some of the stuff I'd been judging him about, I realized, oh, that's just
Him.
part of him, and it's important. And I dropped a few more, you know, instruction guides that I thought I had created for him. It was just like, oh, let that all go. So it just released resistance,
Yeah.
and for myself, for my kids. And I would love parents to have it first for themselves. You have to start, everything starts with us,
Everything
right?
starts with us.
And then, yeah, it's definitely really powerful to be able to look through, I feel like, some lenses that are just a little less dirty. Like, it allowed me to like get rid of a little bit more of the film, the cultural
Yeah. Yeah.
norms, and just be like, I'm just going to release that. And I see them more clearly. I see myself more clearly. I see my husband more clearly. I can show up more authentically myself, and I can honor these other people at even a
Yes.
higher
Yes.
level. Yeah, it was
For those who
powerful.
are who we're talking about in self-healing masters, we have an expert who comes in and we have chart readings with gene keys and human design, and that's one of the first
Yes.
things we do is we strip the mask off at the door. It's like, here's the first thing we need to know about you. What time were you born, and where and when? And then we just get into the goods, and it's all exploration. You get to ask for yourself, right? Like, there's no force, there's no telling you what you are and not. It's just a catalyst to take us deeper. We just use it for information, for inquiry, and for contemplation. And it's
It's
just,
amazing.
yeah, it is
It's
amazing.
I feel like it just gets you a lot, like you get further down the path. It speeds everything up. I don't know. I don't
Mhm,
even know how to
mhm.
describe it. I would say, if just doing that alone was like more worth more than my price of admission. It was just like, just that, and there's so many other parts to self-healing masters, but just having some tools that allow you to understand yourself more. And I was going to say, and get your brain out of it a little bit, because we're still like thinking and logic and blah, blah. And this, for some reason, for me,
Yeah, you can't.
specifically, got my brain out, and like, it was so accurate for my husband and me that I was like, I'm just trusting. Like, I don't even have to go through the mind drama of some of the stuff that, try to convince myself that this is good for me, or this is, it's okay for me to be this way. It was like an instant clicking in for me. That
You're
was really
ready.
powerful. Yeah,
You're
that was really
ready.
powerful.
And also being able to practice being that part of yourself, being more of yourself in the container too. It's like,
Totally.
and so then you can kind of try it out before you put it out there with people who know
Yeah.
you.
Well, yeah, because like inside the container, we can have a conversation, and I can feel more seen and heard by people. And yeah, it's totally a practice. And the more confidence is built there. And so that when you go outside, it's like you can show up with more
Mhm.
confidence, more honoring yourself, less triggered by other people. And you're like, oh, I can just be.
It's like you've already become the other version. So it's like, all right,
It's
I'm ready. It's more
definitely.
comfortable now. It's not so weird. All right, I am
Yeah.
going to hang this up, and then those who are here can ask questions. So thank you for coming on, Andee. Really
You are
appreciate your time, your
welcome. Thank
expertise.
you.
Putting this work out there is so exciting for me. I mean, it's been a big thing for a few years now. I was like, there's got to be somebody who's teaching this before the high chair, like at the beginning. We've got to start.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Thank you.
All right. We'll link your contact information and everything at the bottom of the show.
Perfect.
Righty.
Perfect.
Until tomorrow. I forgot who we have coming up tomorrow. I think it might be Danielle.
Amazing.